I've long been a fan of the John Hughes films, probably most known for The Breakfast Club, my personal favorite, which is 16 Candles, close runner-up, a movie called Pretty in Pink, the Home Alone movies, which everyone knows during the Christmas season. One that took a little longer to grow on me, but that's become a favorite, is one starring Matthew Broderick called Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's a story of an adolescent in high school who wakes up one morning and decides the weather is nice outside, and he sees absolutely no purpose in him going to school. He fakes being sick and then designs this day with two of his friends. And the film is a comedy about the principal constantly tracking him down, trying to figure out if he's breaking the rules so he can really bust him for good. And he does not succeed. That's the whole point of the comedy. At the very end of the film, that character, Ferris Bueller, then speaks to the camera. It's like he's delivering a homily about what it was that we had just watched. I love this opening line that he says, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it." And that opening line struck me as a invitation for us about the Advent season. You know, in the current time, but in really every historical time, people have discovered that life moves pretty fast. The conditions are different from age to age, but the moving of it, the happening of it, the time-bound nature of it is unique to human experience of it. So life moves pretty fast. So if you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss something. It's the whole idea that something could be happening and that we won't see it. Advent is about reminding us what it is that we're looking for. So I'm going to start with this first idea that when we present Advent as a liturgical season, we're not suggesting that there's a historical period of time that we call Advent. That would make sense, wouldn't it? The church uses 4 weeks before Christmas, so there were 4 weeks of Advent. But Advent is an invention well after the death of Jesus Christ, and it's a liturgical invention, and it serves a very good, useful purpose. But all those prophets, particularly Isaiah, who are here tonight, come not knowing that they were, well, Advent prophets. See, life was moving pretty fast, and they were looking around and they missed something. They didn't realize how God was using them. Isaiah's prophecies, for example, are written 400 years before the birth of Christ, and they do indicate an imminence. Jesus is coming, like we heard this evening. Hurry, the Lord is near. You know, you hear those words, it's like he must be in the school parking lot, coming down the sidewalk. That's just people who haven't gotten in here yet, but that's how near the Lord is. He's hurrying. You know, the concept speed. You know, life moves pretty fast. And then you think, why, God here? Like nothing happened. And so in every age, there's been a sense of this expectation, the imminent presence of Jesus Christ, and then the experience of, well, he doesn't seem to show up at any of the proceedings. The prophets die not really knowing how all of this is going to unfold. And many centuries go by till the events that we call our Christmas story that take place. And even that story takes place in a very tiny time frame with only a small number of people that really know what's going on. And then there's silence on the scene for almost 3 more decades before Jesus begins the last 3 years of his life. And it's those 3 years after the age of 30 that are the central stories of our gospel. Even in the ancient age where the prophecy was made but not still fulfilled, there was still the idea, there was still the belief, there was still the hope that a Messiah would come and save them. You find it all in Jewish history, their notion of that. And so, wouldn't you know, another contemporary film, one I've quoted before here, Fiddler on the Roof, presents the example for us fairly well. It's at the end of the film, and you know, at the end of the film, the Jewish settlers of Anatevka have been evicted from their town. They're going to move literally to the 4 corners of the world. They're being dispersed. The czars are in their last bit of existence in Russia. A revolution is coming, and none of this is going to make it safe for the Jewish people to remain there. They're completely evicted out of their homes. It's rather upsetting. It's a sad way that the film finds its end. Tevye, who's the central character's son-in-law, Matel, says to the rabbi as they're all gathering together in the town, preparing to leave, he says, Rabbi, we've waited all our lives for the Messiah to come. Wouldn't now be a good time for him to come? And the rabbi looks thoughtfully, as thoughtful rabbis look, I look back at him and says, well, we'll have to go wait for him someplace else. You see, life moved pretty fast for the settlers of Untitled, so fast that suddenly they found themselves evicted from their home. Their central quest to find the Messiah still seemed to elude them. They wondered if they'd missed something when really they hadn't. It's just the whole nature of it, that you have to keep paying attention, you have to keep watching, or indeed, if you do not, you will miss something. That's the whole kind of nature of that Advent story. When we move into our present time, our present experience of Advent, I always like to open up, as I did in the beginning, by telling you that we observe it as 4 weeks on the liturgical calendar. That gives us 4 Sundays and a good number of the weekdays to tell the story of the prophets and to tell some of the Christmas story, the precursors of it that are told at different times in the story. And it's a preparation. The whole concept of those 4 weeks is that we are engaging in a particular focus that will bring us to Christmas. Advent makes no sense if Christmas doesn't follow it. Even though it's its own unique season, has its own unique colors, one of the 2 seasons where we wear the purple vestments, everything, and we suppress the glory, all the little things that we do. Even though it's a unique season, it's not a standalone season. Advent always has Christmas. The whole point of Advent is that in the end, we don't have to hurry any longer. Jesus is here. He is born to the Virgin Mary, and then we have the Christmas story that comes. So the two are meant to work together, even though they may seem and appear to you as opposite seasons. Advent without Christmas is senseless and pointless. And so we would also say about life without resurrection. Senseless and pointless. And you see, the church really wants us to see, as I mentioned in the introduction tonight, that our lives are a, living Advent. Now, it's not 4 weeks. I mean, that would be a very brief time to be on the face of this earth, but it's for a period of time. We know not how long that period of time is. And the purpose of our living our life is that this is the mechanism, the final steps of our preparation to meet the Lord. The way that we do it is so very different than we imagine. And it starts, first of all, in baptism, which many of us, if you're Catholic and you were baptized as an infant, you have no recollection of it whatsoever. You're much too young to remember it. But I've done several hundreds of them now over the last 20 years, more than several hundreds, I think. And I've become accustomed to the ritual, and I see the part that people don't really notice, they don't pay attention to. I understand why they don't. You've got a little infant child there, you're baptizing him. We're just hoping he doesn't go to the bathroom on the priest, or if they're crying or something. And it's a very beautiful thing, and we're introducing the child to the church. Those are the things that people pay attention to. But the significant moment in the baptism comes earlier on when the minister announces out loud that this person will, at the end of their life, receive a heavenly inheritance. This is more clear when we celebrate the Mass of Christian burial, what we call a funeral liturgy. We greet the body in the casket or the urn at the doorway of the church and reprise that baptism ritual. We sprinkle the coffin or the urn with holy water, the only water you see during the pandemic, as a reminder of baptism. And I always explain at that moment that it's also an indicator that this person has accomplished the central purpose of their life, which is, in the words of the ritual, to bring their baptismal garment unstained into the everlasting presence of God. It is that focus on eternity that suddenly gives our life its purpose. And of course, because life moves pretty fast, and if you're not careful, you may miss something. We're so sometimes caught up in the fast-paced, moving nature of our life, somewhat haunted by the idea that the Lord may come sometime, but we know not when, and we still have to deal with what we have to deal with, that we lose focus, because all that can be very dizzying, be very exhausting, and not really get the sense that this is all going somewhere. There is purpose behind it, even though we don't know it, and that purpose will be revealed to us only after we've breathed our last, because only then can we see the face of God, and only then can we receive our heavenly inheritance. Well, that's a big obstacle. It is for me, and I'm sure it is for you. You have to die before all these benefits start coming. And for most of us, that's something we put in the back of our mind for obvious and good reasons. But nevertheless, Christianity, our Christian discipleship, beckons us to keep our death in front of us, to be aware that our life is going to end in death as we understand our life, because only through death can our resurrected life that we don't understand, that's a mystery to us, can that possibly be unveiled to us. Of all the things that kind of charmed me into understanding this, the movie Moonstruck, one of my very favorites. And Moonstruck is a romantic comedy, and it's dealing with Cher as the central character in there. She's trying to get married, but it's her parents that catch my attention. Her older parents, they've been married for a long time, and their marriage has somewhat stalled. The dad, Cosmos, has basically had some type of midlife crisis, and he's having an affair with another woman. And Olympia Dukakis, who plays his wife, Rose, discovers this. And in the seminal scene towards the end of the film, when she confronts him, he comes in the door having just gone out with this woman of their house, and she looks him in the eyes and she says, "Cosmos, you're going to die just like everyone else." Earlier, it had been revealed to her by a gentleman in a restaurant that she met because she was eating alone that men cheat on their wives because they fear death. That little line also kind of runs underneath all of Moonstruck as a humorous line, but I just like that whole notion where she says to him that you're going to die just like everyone else. It's a startling revelation. The reality is that we avoid death and we try to move away from it. We don't want to think about it. It's hard to keep it in front of us. It's not a very predictable event, but it is going to be how we ultimately move into eternal life. Back in August, I shared with you my own personal journey of this difficult issue of death and loss and grieving. And I revealed to you that I'd been grieving rather secretly and privately over 27 years over the loss of my dear friend Michael. And by finally getting the resolve in June to go for the first time in all those years to Angola, Indiana, to visit where he was buried. And the evening I preached that, I also shared with you that all of the reasons I hadn't gone, which were not good reasons, they were all part of my grief and my denial of the grief and my not wanting to make things worse. You know, all the different things that we did. I also had this terrible fear, what was going to happen when I got there. What if I felt nothing? What if I had a meltdown? I had all these little different things that I was afraid of that were barriers to my doing it. And I revealed in that homily that when I got to Circle Hill Cemetery in Angola, Indiana, I found something I wasn't expecting to find. And remember, I told you it was peace. But I didn't tell you much more of the story. There was not much more to do. I want to open it up a little bit here. That I didn't find peace the minute I first saw his headstone. I didn't. I mean, I was there for 3 days. The discovery would happen over a period of time. I think well into that second day. Like anyone else, I was busy about doing things, putting flowers there and arranging something would look like, trying to come up with a ritual for future visits because I felt more comfortable with being there. And it was on that second day when I decided to sit down on the ground where his headstone was. Now, I'm 64, I'll be 65 next week, and there's always a danger outdoors with no handles that when I sit down on the ground, I may not be able to get back up again. It won't be elegant. Anyone that's seen me on Good Friday knows when we lay on the floor and you get up, there's no graceful way really to do it. But I felt self-conscious that I was sitting on the ground, somebody's going to see me, they're going to wonder what they were doing. You know, that thought that runs through your head. You're in the cemetery. Most people are visiting their loved ones and they're not paying attention to the man over there that's sitting down on the ground. So I became more comfortable with it, more aware of myself, less self-conscious, and then I found myself laying down on the ground. And I just simply laid there. And that was when I found my peace. Oh, there was that temptation, I think I'll just stay here forever, but I actually knew that wouldn't happen. Within a few minutes, that's about as much of the ground as I could take, and I was going to get back up anyway. But that whole sense that this would be the culminating moment, right here. Here's where I found peace that had eluded me for so very long. A couple of months ago, I heard a song that was released several years ago that described that moment I just described to you so beautifully that I couldn't describe it in any better way. The artist is Melissa Etheridge. Many of you know her as a singer. And the song is called Sleep. And it really is about ultimately facing our death knowing that our death is going to result in a kind of heavenly sleep. So it kind of fits that theme that I mentioned this evening. The end of the song, what really captures me, says these words: "And when the light in my eye is fading, when running water becomes too deep, finally angels turn my fire to dust, and when my soul's no longer mine to keep, I want to lay down on your shoulder, just inside your arm. I want to listen to your heartbeat and your breathing on and on. I want to lay down on your shoulder, surrender to the peace, and just go to sleep." The song is just beautiful, but when we moved into Advent, it suddenly occurred to me. I listen to the song a lot. I really love that song right now. It occurred to me that when Advent liturgically ends and we come to celebrate Christmas together, we will find Jesus. We'll see him for the first time. We'll hear the story of seeing him for the first time as an infant in his mother's arms. That's how we're going to encounter the face of God that's eluded all human history and sleeping inside his mother's arms. And at Silent Night, we sing "Sleep in Heavenly Peace." All of that's very beautiful, emotional part of Christmas, but don't you know that's the whole purpose of our life, that the thing that we're most afraid of, the thing that we are most worried about, the thing that gives us the most anxiety, the idea that our death comes and we don't know what's going to happen next. Remember, the Matthew Broderick character says that, life moves fast, and if you don't pay attention, you may miss something. And so often in those precious moments, we miss it. Those precious moments, when they come, few and far between, I will agree, laying down on the ground at Circle Hill Cemetery in Angola, Indiana, those moments are meant to animate the other moments of our life, to teach us what awaits us, not what we fear, not what we're frightened of, but, oh my goodness, the loving embrace of God. It's the sight of Jesus in his mother's arms that bears a little further thought, which is that in the end, he will hold us in his arms. And when he holds us in his arms, then we can just go to sleep. It's the most powerful and beautiful prophecy that can possibly be given us. It won't make your life better tonight or tomorrow. It won't take any of tomorrow's troubles away. Life will continue to move very fast, and it will be often hard to keep up with things. But Advent bids us to keep our eye on the prize. And for those of us that are Catholic tonight, we will receive Eucharist together, and when we receive Holy Communion, we receive the sacred body and precious blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. And we forget, although I bid you to not forget, that in that moment, God in his entirety is visiting us. When we receive him in the sacrament, there's no way he could possibly be closer. There's no other way in this life that can happen. So we are not forced to wait to the moment that we die to have this revealed to us. The revelation is already there in the sacraments. Those are the signs that if we're not watching, we miss. That's why Jesus told his apostles to watch. Not because danger was coming, watch, because glory is coming, and you might miss it if you don't watch it. And our crazy, mixed-up lives do the very same thing. And our grieving complicates that because we feel so sad when we do. Grieving is what we feel on this side of the grave. But loving is what we do in the life to come. Maybe that's the reason we say rest in peace. I think it is the reason that we say it. And maybe that is the reason for those beautiful words of Silent Night: sleep in heavenly peace. So you and I will continue to run and busy and move forward. Life will continue to move fast. But let's hope this time in Advent we will also learn to look for the signs. And when we look for them and when we believe them, we too can rest in peace.